I'm Narelle Todd.
And I'm Essie Susan Smith.
We are the self-publishing author and marketing duo that has sold over 2 million books. But we didn't start out knowing how to sell books. Fast forward past many failed promotions and a lot of lessons learned, you will see how we went from self-publishing newbies to hitting the New York Times bestsellers list and making the USA Today bestsellers list 19 times and counting. We created the Get My Book Out There podcast to give you simple yet effective marketing strategies to increase readership and book sales so you know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, as well as some tips for staying mentally and physically well.
Let's get started.
We're coming you today to talk about marketing and the 3 things that you need to keep in mind. Master marketing so that it doesn't overwhelm you, which is always the fun part with marketing is it's so easy to do.
It's amazing that we're just talking about this because I had a lady email me today and she was asking me, she said, that she wanted to release her books and release them, but she's really intimidated she thinks the writing part is easy, but the publishing part is hard. And I told her, I said, the publishing part is easy. It's the marketing part that's hard. So this is something that, you have to know a lot about yourself. You have to know what your strengths and weaknesses are when it comes to marketing. And you need to know how to attack or approach this obstacle because it's going to sometimes seem like you're, doing the whole gamut that, you would think that the Navy SEALs would have to go through with the quicksand and over the mountains and under the barbed wire and all of this, because that can be what marketing feels like.
Yeah, certainly every survey I've ever read of authors, the majority say that marketing is the hardest part. The writing, the editing, all of that is child's play compared to the marketing, and that's where a lot get stuck. So we've got 3 tips for people today, just on marketing and how not to get overwhelmed by it. And our first tip is to work out what your strengths are. By this, make sure that you know what you're interested in and what you're good at, and then go do your marketing tactics that actually work to your strength. If you're up to speed on something already, if you're great with website and SEO, then might want to do that would be first off, rather than say learning Facebook ads or something else that you've got no idea about.
One of the things I think if you're an author that you do have somewhat, not perfect, because there's a lot of authors that really struggle in writing like blurbs or log lines or taglines or whatever. So, but if that's where you're really strong at, then that may be where you need to be your creative part for the marketing. And if you're not good with the SEO, if you're not good with doing the Facebook ads or whatever, then you help do the writing of the content, but you turn over that other part that you're not very good at or you're not interested in. Sometimes you may not be good at something and you want to learn it. And if you want to be that way, that's great. But if it's something that you've got to do, don't really care, it's not your thing, it's not what you want to do, don't be afraid to outsource that. Find somebody who does enjoy it, because there are people out there that really think it's like the fabulous thing in the world is to write Facebook ads.
Exactly. And that leads into point number 2, mastering one tactic before you then move on to learning the next one. So you know what you're good at, you're doing those things that you're good at, and then it's like, okay, I want to add to my repertoire of marketing tactics and tools that you've got. Spend time in really getting to know one of those things really well before you then add something else in.
One of the things that I found is that I enjoy reading about marketing. I like the creative part of marketing. That's something that really attracts me. I used to say if I could teach reading and writing and arithmetic to 3rd graders, I could sell anything. If I could sell this concepts to them, I could sell anything to anyone. One of the things that, I enjoy doing is taking some of the things that I did to make those lessons come alive for the students. I try to do in my marketing. But I also realize, and I have a technical background, but it's not always something that I enjoy doing. I love tearing things apart and putting them back together. And I think marketing is kind of like that. You're seeing something, you're tearing it apart, breaking it down to its basic components, and then you're putting it back together into this, like fabulous ad or something. But for me, understanding and going in and reading all of the terms of service for Facebook ads, I'm like, I get about 3 sentences in and then I am literally sound asleep. It's just not my thing.
You found the cure for insomnia.
Yes. What was it they say? I like Beetlejuice, where he's reading the handbook for the undead or for the dead, whatever. And he said, this is just like reading stereo instructions. I remember having to read The Prince by Machiavelli in college. And I noticed that I would start reading and I'd get about halfway through the first page and I would be sound asleep. It didn't matter what time I tried to read that book. It would literally put me to sleep like that. I realized that there's just some things that my brain is not geared for.
One mistake that I see authors make is they'll say, okay, I need to be on social media. And so they set up accounts on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Pinterest. You know, they start off for the first week and they post on all the sites, then they fall over. Because there are things that are specific to each tactic that you're going to be doing. And each social network is a tactic in and of itself. You know, how you use Facebook is going to be different to how you would use Twitter, to Instagram. So it's really important to actually take the time to learn one of those things first. And
unless you're someone like me.
Yes.
Because then you start to go, just an example, Pinterest. I'm going to go learn Pinterest. And I find out it is a rabbit hole. You know, I come up like 3 weeks later going, oh my God, you know, okay, I'm making this, I've made that, I've got this on my wall. And it's like, what was I even there for?
Yes.
Again, if you're a creative type, you may need to be careful. It may be your thing that you may really enjoy, but make sure you don't go down the rabbit hole so that you forget what you're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
That's when you turn it over to an expert like you.
And the other thing, of course, is to remember, you touched on this before, was when you're learning each tactic is there's also the terms of service that you have to learn. And, you know, they are not necessarily the most exciting thing. But if you break those...
right up there with root canals.
I know of a few authors, and I just heard of one yesterday who's been banned on Facebook because they did something not realizing it was against terms of service. And so, you know, they these days you often don't get a warning. I think, you know, they just got a straight, you're banned, and they're banned for a month. But imagine if your tactic was Facebook, you know, that was one of the things you used, but you didn't read the terms of service. Take the time to read them.
You know, I think that I've seen that in other cases that they're like, oh, well, they won't catch me. I mean, look at all of them. Nobody will catch me doing this. And be careful of taking those shortcuts, because those shortcuts, a month off of Facebook, being in Facebook jail, can be critical to your business career if your business is dependent on Facebook.
Oh, that's right.
So it's not worth, if that's not your thing, if reading terms of service is not your thing, then turn it over to somebody who it is their thing, and don't take the shortcuts, because the shortcuts may work in the short term, but in the long run, I've heard of authors that have gotten kicked off for a year.
Yes.
And at the end of the year, they come back celebrating, but it was a tough year for them.
Yes. And that leads into our tip number 3, and that's about learning different tactics so that you aren't just on one, say, social platform. You are across others, but you've actually taken the time, go and learn different tactics to incorporate those into your toolkit.
Yeah, putting all of your eggs in one basket so that if you do get kicked off of Facebook, it's not the end of your career. You may have to exist on Twitter or Instagram or Pinterest, and that's another good reason why you should know more than one specific area.
So one of the things that you do need to do is actually create time in your calendar to learn new things all the time. New tactics, but also, you know, when a platform gets updated, for example, and it's like, oh, I've got to go and relearn what I've learned before, or, you know, I have to remember that I do it this way now and not that way. I remember when Facebook changed Facebook Live, I remember, and the first time you went to use it after they did, and it was completely different. You know, it's stuff like that, and you just go, oh, I don't have time in the day.
It increases your stress level.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy for you, especially for, you know, I won't say just for a creative person, because I don't think it's good. The very, very organized person can get stressed out too. You go in and you're very familiar with something, and then it's like coming back to your desk and somebody's rearranged the whole thing.
Yes.
cases with me where I've got, spices in the spice cabinet, although mine have never been organized, so I can't really say this. But you go to get a spice that you know that you had in a certain spot and then it's gone.
Yeah.
It's been moved to somewhere more logical.
Exactly, yes. Have time, plan for things that you're always going to be learning. So whether it's a new tactic or learning new things about something you already know, but just make sure you have that time factored in, because it's lifelong learning with regards to marketing that you never are going to know. A new tactic will come up, or they'll change something about what you're
never really know what will work.
That's right.
Because one thing that you do may work today and you try to do it again tomorrow and it doesn't. It's part of the understanding that marketing is kind of like gambling in a certain way, because you never know what will take, what will connect with the readers and what won't. But the thing is like you said, as long as you keep learning and you keep tweaking, it not only makes you a better person overall, but it also will help you with your business and help you be less stressed out.
And I reckon that's a topic we should do in another podcast. All the tactics we've tried. What's worked, what hasn't, or what did and what didn't. We'll leave that one for another one.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And I hope that the 3 tips that we gave you are helpful in some way, because these are tried and true things that we have gone through to try to learn so that you don't have to stumble over the hurdle that we did.
That's right, absolutely.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. We've got way more information we want to share with you to increase your book sales. So please come and join me at facebook.com. Get my book out there.